Iraq's bloodiest day in more than a year. More than a dozen attacks kill at least 60 people across the country. I'm Lise Doucette. Welcome to The Hub. Are these attacks intended to drive a wedge between Baghdad and Washington ahead of this year's planned U.S. troop withdrawal? And the other headlines this hour on The Hub. Egypt's former president Hosni Mubarak appears again in court on a stretcher. Outside the court, supporters and critics clash. Taking the fight against corruption to the extreme, an Indian civil rights activist threatens again to starve himself to death for his cause. A funeral for a Bollywood legend. The great and the good pay their last respects to Indian actor Shami Kapoor. Hello and welcome. We start in Iraq. There's been a wave of violence across the country. More than a dozen Iraqi cities were hit by bomb attacks. It's the worst single day of violence in Iraq in more than a year. And it comes as Iraqi politicians are under pressure from Washington to make what is a politically sensitive decision on U.S. troops. American forces are set to pull out in December. Iraq could decide to ask some of the 46,000 soldiers to stay. Well, the attacks today, which punctured the calm of the holy month of Ramadan, is the country's bloodiest day since May last year, when 110 people died. But there have been a series of attacks across the country this year. On the 27th of January, 53 people died across Baghdad in several explosions. Then, in March, 58 people died when al-Qaeda commandos launched an attack on provincial government offices in Tikrit.
The worst attack was here in the city of Kut. 2 bombs went off within minutes of each other. First, a roadside device in the city centre. Then, when security forces arrived at the scene, a car bomb was detonated. In Diyala province, there were at least 5 blasts, at least 10 dead. In Tikrit, 2 suicide bombers are reported.
Chris Gunnis there. The judge at the trial of the former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak has adjourned the hearing for 3 weeks and ruled that future proceedings will not be televised. Mr Mubarak's trial in Cairo will also be held in conjunction with that of his former Interior Minister. Both men accused of ordering the killing of hundreds of protesters during the uprising.
Forced from office, emerging from an ambulance on a hospital bed, once again ex-President Mubarak is brought to court to answer for his alleged abuses of power in Egypt. His son Allah moves to stop these pictures being taken. But inside, the humiliation of the Mubarak family is clear for all to see. Father and sons inside the enormous caged dock in this police academy originally named to honour Mubarak as president. The judge calls the fallen leader's name and he acknowledges his presence to face trial.
Mohammed Hosni al-Sayyid Mubarak.
The basic charges against him that, as president, Hosni Mubarak conspired in the killing of protesters during the huge demonstrations which brought him down, and that he abused his power as president to amass a huge personal fortune. He denies the charges. Outside, from early morning, the military authorities in Egypt, acting as caretaker government, deployed substantial armour to confront rival crowds backing or condemning the ex-president. There were scuffles and some stone throwing, a reminder of Egypt's fragile state. Inside the courtroom too, the trial often seemed close to chaos. Hundreds of lawyers are contesting this historic case and the judge is struggling to make progress. With the prosecution arguing they must be given full access to all evidence, the defence says it will summon up to 1,600 witnesses. The judge adjourned the trial until September the 5th, saying he won't allow live TV coverage then, when he hopes to hear the first witnesses. As the ex-president was taken back into custody, it became clearer than ever that a legal marathon is only just beginning. It's one that will test severely Egypt's efforts to apply the rule of law and find a peaceful way towards genuine democracy. James Robbins, BBC News.
The Nigeria and Chelsea footballer John Obi Mikel has made a desperate plea for kidnappers to release his father. He says his father never came home from work on Friday. He runs a transport company in the central Nigerian city of Jos. Mr. Mikel would like to return to the country to visit his family, but has been told by security officials it's safer for him to stay in Britain. Police in Nigeria say they've shot dead a suspected suicide bomber as he drove a car packed with explosives into the police headquarters in the northern city of Maiduguri. They say the Islamist sect Boko Haram was behind the attack. The security forces have been accused of abusing civilians in their fight against the sect. An Indonesian man wounded in an attack by Muslim extremists has received a longer jail term than many of those who launched the assault. Deden Sujana had his arm nearly severed when he and other members of the minority Ahmadiyya sect were attacked with clubs and machetes by nearly 1,000 people. Mr. Sujana was jailed for 6 months. Those who launched the attack got either 3 or 6 months. Officials in Pakistan say more than 2 million people have been affected by monsoon flooding in the province of Sindh in the south of the country. Sindh was one of the areas most affected a year ago by similar rains. Devastating flooding there. The country's flood defences were left badly damaged. Lise, that's it. I'm back with the headlines in 20 minutes. Back to you.
Thank you. The Netherlands has taken the unusual step of giving over $144 million worth of frozen Libyan assets to the World Health Organization. The money is to be used to help provide medical assistance to the Libyan people. Well, a short time ago here on the Hub, I spoke to the Dutch Foreign Minister Uri Rosenthal.
We have actually got an urgent request from the World Health Organization to defreeze about 100 million euros of the frozen assets of the Libyan regime for medical purposes. And we have afterwards, brought this to the attention of the Sanction Committee of the United Nations, which has said okay. So on that basis we have indeed decided to honor the request of the World Health Organization.
This is certainly good news for struggling doctors in Libya, but why did it take so long? As you know, the Transitional Council based, the rebels, has been calling for months for the assets to be unfrozen and to be sent to Libya.
Well, of course, we have gotten this urgent request on the part of the World Health Organization. When we talk about defreezing assets, it's always a complex affair, full of juridical and other intricacies. And the very fact that the Sanction Committee of the United Nations has accorded this move has brought the Dutch government to the decision we have taken today.
If the Rebel Council now asks you to give them some money, would you send them money?
Well, what we are talking now about is the request on the part of the United Nations through the World Health Organization, and the defreezing of the assets is actually meant to help distribute medical supplies to all those who are in need of it. And this is not only meant to go to the people in Benghazi and other areas under the control of the Transitional Council, but to any citizens which, in the opinion of the World Health Organization, are in acute need for medical help.
Speaking earlier, we're going to the United States now. U.S. President Barack Obama has begun a campaign-style speaking tour, a bus tour, to make a case to voters for action to boost the U.S. economy and boost jobs. There you see him. He's on a 3-day Midwest swing, coming as his poll ratings continue to slip amid poor economic news. He held 2 town hall meetings in Minnesota and Iowa. Let's just listen in.
You're paying more than that, and now I may be wrong, but I think you're a little less wealthy than Warren Buffett. That's just a guess. The point is that if we're willing to do something in a balanced way, making some tough choices in terms of spending cuts, but also raising some revenue from folks who've done very well, even in a tough economy, then we can get control of our debt and deficit, and we can start still investing in things like education and basic research and infrastructure that are going to make sure that our future is bright. It's not that complicated. But it does require everybody being willing to make some compromises. I was in Holland, Michigan the other day, and I said, I don't know about how things work in your house, but in my house, if I said, you know, Michelle, honey, we got to cut back. So we're going to have you stop shopping completely. You can't buy shoes, you can't buy dresses. But I'm keeping my golf clubs. You know, that wouldn't go over so well. The point is, something's happened in Washington where we think that kind of compromise that we do every day in our own families, with our neighbors, with our coworkers, with our friends, that somehow that's become a dirty word.
President Obama talking about compromise is a dirty word, still really simmering with anger over the kind of long negotiations he had to do with the Republicans over the debt ceiling. So, is he on the campaign stump now? Let's go to Washington to join our correspondent Steve Kingston. It's a reminder, Steve, of American politics. The elections are more than a year away. Is this really part of the election campaign already?
Well, officially the White House says no, of course it's not, but it looks like a campaign and it sounds like a campaign, and he's rehearsing there the themes that he will return to again and again during the 15 months between now and his re-election bid next November. Essentially, before we got to that point, Barack Obama had spelt out to his audience the problems facing America, trying to make it clear that there are external factors in the economic doldrums that we see now. For example, the Japanese tsunami, he said, had affected the world economy. He talked about the European debt problems. He talked about the effect that the Arab Spring had had on economic matters. But he made it clear that as he sees it, the real stumbling block in terms of a solution right now is Washington, and by that he means Republicans and Democrats. He's pointing a finger at the logjam, the legislative wars that we've had in Congress, with one house of Congress, of course, being controlled by the Republicans, the Senate being controlled by the Democrats. So really he's trying to spread around the blame at this point and suggest practical solutions. He was talking about, for example, extending a cut in the payroll tax for all Americans. He was talking about extending unemployment insurance, building new roads, infrastructure projects, all of which he says will get the economy moving, create jobs, but all of which depend on cooperation between Republicans and Democrats when they come back to Washington next month.
Steve Kingston, thank you for joining us. You're watching The Hub with me, Lise Doucette. Coming up on the programme, India's Bollywood stars pay their respects to actor Shami Kapoor.